Resourceful Designer, Episode 13, Gift Ideas for Your Graphic Design Space.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host, he preferred CompuServe over AOL, Mark Decote.
Welcome to Resourceful Designer. I am so happy that you can join me today. I'm honored that out of all the podcasts you could be listening to, you chose mine. I sure hope that everything's going well with your design business. I got to try something new this week. I created my very first EPUB. I'd mentioned a few episodes ago how I was formatting a book that my brother had written, and I got that all done, but then he needed an EPUB version so that he can publish it on Amazon and a few other places. And it's something that I knew I had the capability, the software to do, but I had never actually done it before. So it was kind of interesting looking into what needed to be done and doing some minor reformatting adjustments, because you have absolutely no control over an EPUB, what the book will look like in the final viewer's hands, because they can choose any font size that they want. They can make the font larger or smaller. So as far as how it flows, you have no idea. So it was a little bit of a challenge and I had to do some back and forth, but it was kind of fun. So now I can chalk that up to something else I've done, is creating an EPUB. So that was my high point of the week. Now, another high point of my week was getting a 5-star review in iTunes for the podcast, and I want to thank Felipe for leaving it. Now, he wrote, "I really enjoy the way Mark presents his podcast. He makes everything easy to understand and enjoyable. I subscribe to other graphic design podcasts, and this one is different, and I feel like he's talking directly to me and not just trying to have an entertaining show. I recommend this to anyone who has a freelance design business or plans on starting one like I plan to do." Well, thank you, Felipe. That really means a lot. Now, if you would like to leave a review for the podcast, you could do so in Stitcher, in iTunes, or wherever you consume the podcast. To get there, you can head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, or in the case of Stitcher, it would be /Stitcher, and leave me a review. I would really appreciate it. Now, if you want to reach out to me personally, just visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback, and you can use that form to send me whatever message you'd like. Now, normally in this part of the podcast, I would share my weekly design resource, but this week's going to be a little bit different. So a couple of weeks ago, knowing that the Christmas season was fast approaching, I posted a question to the various graphic design Facebook groups I belong to, as well as some of the LinkedIn groups I belong to. And I asked, what would you get for your office or studio space? And the actual question was, I'm doing some research here. Other than a new computer or software, if you can ask for one thing for Christmas to improve or enhance your design office studio space, what would you want to get? So instead of sharing a weekly resource with you this week, I'm just going to go over a bunch of the answers I got to this question. And there are some great ones. And if you're curious at any point to what exactly it is I'm talking about, I'll include links in the show notes to all of these things so you can look to see exactly what they are. Now, I have to say that by far, the most popular answer to this question was a Wacom tablet. Not just a specific one, just tablets in general. But I had a lot of people that said they'd love to get one of the new Cintiq tablets from Wacom. And they also named a few different ones. But it was one of the answers that was almost consistent across everywhere that I posted this question. There was at least one person that mentioned this. And of course, as soon as one person mentioned it, then a bunch of other people would follow up and say, oh yeah, I'd love that. And that would be great. So that seemed to be on the top of the list, was a Wacom tablet. Now, I don't personally have a Wacom tablet. I know a friend of mine that does use one and swears by it. And I know I have kind of a strange view of the whole thing. I'm not an illustrator, and to me, those things were always meant for illustrators. And because I'm not an illustrator, I never really thought to get one. Now, I know my view is wrong. I know that you can use them for so many other things. Like I do a lot of stuff in Photoshop, but I don't actually do drawing. And I just had this mentality in my head because way back when Wacom first came out, that's mostly what they were used for, was for drawing. And I knew another designer who had bought one right from the start and still uses them to this day. But I had this mentality in my head that they were for artists, and that's not what I was. So it's never really been on my radar to get one, but maybe it should be, because looking in the comments to all these questions, so many people use these for different reasons. So it looks like it would be a really good add to a Christmas list. Now, what other stuff did people talk about? Well, whiteboards and corkboards were very popular. Now, I love my whiteboard. It's so easy to just jot stuff down and erase it when you're done with it. And it's good for really mind mapping and trying to figure stuff out. Now, I'm a big person. I always have a sketch pad in front of me or any sort of note paper and a pencil. Very rarely will you ever see me writing with a pen. I always have a pencil, a mechanical pencil. In fact, I've had the same mechanical pencil for the past 10 years when I started my business. Actually, before that, this pencil actually was with me at the print shop. And there's nothing really special about it, but it's just followed me all this time. And it's kind of funny that if for some reason I misplace the pencil, it's like all of a sudden I can't work. I have to find my pencil. Even if I don't need to write anything, I have to have my pencil there to work. So I always have paper or something on hand for me to sketch on. But the whiteboard is also a great way for you to do something. Or for me, when I use it, I sketch out stuff and I can leave it there. Sheets of paper on the desk can be pushed around, can be buried under stuff. But the whiteboard is great. And a cork board is good for keeping those special notes. And it's definitely something that I think every office space should have. Some place where you can put the certain mail you get, or just even stick a Post-it note to, or for whatever reason, something to inspire you. A whiteboard and a corkboard are both definites for any office place. Now, another from me to me with love gift idea was design books. A few people said they would love to get some more graphic design related books, but that their budget wasn't there or they just couldn't swing it. But if anybody wanted to get them anything. Now, I just purchased Work for Money, Design for Love by David Arie, and I plan to start reading it over the holidays. But there were a few other books when I was purchasing this one off Amazon that I saw that really piqued my interest. Some of them I've heard before, but I'd never read, and some of them that were brand new to me. A couple of them were like Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I've heard of that one before, and I know it's got really good reviews. And there's Burn Your Portfolio, stuff they didn't teach you in design school, but should. And even though I said I'm not really an illustrator, I was really fascinated with some stuff I saw about hand lettering recently. So there was one book on Amazon that I saw. It was actually called Hand Lettering Ledger, a practical guide to creating serif, script, illustrated, ornate, and other totally original hand-drawn styles. And as I said, even though I don't know if I can actually do them, I would love to get my hands on that book just to see what these people are capable of. Because anybody who does hand lettering to me is just totally amazing. So design books is definitely a really good add to your wish list. Now, another thing that was very popular and talked about was organizers. Anything to organize your office space. And I definitely can use that. My office, I must say, is a mess. I've got stuff all over my desk. I've got stuff on the floor. It almost seems to become a habit. You put a piece of paper down, and then later when you have another piece of paper and you don't know where to put it, you put it on top of the other one and so forth until you have piles of paper all over the place. Yeah, and that's one I can definitely use as well as some sort of organizers, whether it's bookshelves or the books that I was just talking about or magazines that you subscribe to. There's a really cool one that I love, and I think it would really look good in my office. It's a leaning ladder style bookshelf. So the uprights are kind of on an angle and the shelves are larger at the bottom and they get smaller at the top. So it kind of looks like it's a ladder leaning against the wall. I really like the look of those, and I think it would really look good in the corner of my office. And another thing, as far as drawers, is on Amazon, I saw I believe it's from Winsome Halifax, and it's a cabinet with 7 drawers. If I remember correctly, it was on wheels, so you'd be able to roll it off into the corner when you don't need it and then pull it out. Or if you have a closet in your office, you can leave it in there and then pull it out when you need it. But I think that would be something really handy. Now, something else that was mentioned and something that I really agree with is a good ergonomic chair. Now, that's something that could run a wide gamut of prices. I was looking at one, the Viva Office high-backed bonded leather chair, which looks really comfortable. It's hard to say when you're just looking at a photo, but ones that really, really look good are the Herman Miller chairs. If you're not familiar with these things are amazing and they look so comfortable, which is something that's really important in our industry. I mean, we're sitting in front of a computer day in, day out. We really need a good chair to support ourselves. And these Herman Miller chairs look amazing, but price-wise, I mean, some of them are more expensive than a new computer, so I think this is something that'll be on my wish list for a very long time before I actually get one, if ever. Now, another thing added to the wish list was a standing desk. And these are great. These are desks that you can adjust the height, and VariDesk makes some really nice ones. Because sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a really good chair or sometimes you have some back problems, standing might be a really good solution, and you work for a while standing and then you can sit down and it could really ease the stress on your back. Now, I don't have a standing desk, but I do have my keyboard tray that slides out is, I don't know what brand it is, but my keyboard tray, if I tilt the tray backwards at a little angle, it unlocks the whole thing, and then an arm underneath swings up. So I can actually bring my keyboard up to a standing position and stand and work. And my tray is wide enough that I have my mouse on it as well. So I've got my keyboard and my mouse, and I could stand. Now, of course, I'm standing above my computer. I have to tilt my iMac up in order for me to get a really good view of it, but it's still kind of an alternative to a standing desk and much more affordable. And the thing with these things is you can actually take your existing desk. If you have some sort of keyboard tray, you can actually replace that tray with something like this and turn your existing desk into a standing desk. I'll make sure to leave a link in the show notes so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But there was a lot of people that said they would love to have a standing desk. And if you can't afford to buy the full desk, this is a really great alternative. I use it all the time. I'll stand up, and as I'm typing away or whatever, I love doing it standing up from time to time because, as you know, sitting in front of your computer for 8, 9, 10, sometimes more hours a day can really take its toll. Now, I got a kick out of the next one, but it was actually brought up on a few different lists, and that's either a heater or a fan for your studio. Especially if your office is in a basement. Sometimes basements can get really cold, especially at this time of year. At least in North America here, the weather's turning cold as winter's approaching. A heater might be a really good idea for your basement. And during the summer months when it gets really hot, a nice fan sometimes in the corner could really, really make a difference. So those are actually two things that I never even thought of until I saw them on the list. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, another item that a few people talked about was studio lighting for photography. If they need to take product shots or whatever to go into their designs and they take their own pictures, some of them were talking about how they use the window for natural lighting, but they could only take photos at certain times of the day or what, and they'd really like some good studio lighting for photography. And the thing is really, you think it might be expensive, but you can get some pretty good kits on Amazon for under $50. So it's not that far-fetched to get them. And some of them come with nice little cases. So if you're not using them on a regular basis, you can actually store them away. They're not intrusive in your office, taking up a lot of space. So studio lighting might be something that if you're into photography, it might be worth investing a few dollars into something like that. As I said, you can buy kits on Amazon for under $50. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can have it shipped for free. And there you go. Beautifully lit photos. Now, there was something somebody mentioned that I hadn't thought of in a long time, and that's a drafting table. I mean, I started off in graphic design before computers. When I first started working, I was working on a typesetter, and I was doing all my design on a drafting table. And I had a drafting table at home as well. But once computer got introduced and more of the design came this way, the drafting table just became a place to put things on. And yeah, I was still using it as a table, but not necessarily a drafting table. And eventually I ended up selling it. But a quick search on Amazon shows that there's still a lot of variety of drafting tables. And if that's something that would help you in your design business, for sure that would be something to add to your wish list. Now, an associated item would be some sort of light pad, and which was also mentioned. Now, a light pad is kind of a lit table. And back when I was at the print shop, our drafting tables were actually light tables as well. So you would have the drafting table with your arm going up and where you can set your set squares and all sorts of stuff on. But the table itself, you'd have a switch and you can actually light it up and it would act as a light pad. And light pads are great for tracing things or doing all sorts of work. And there's still many different options available for you if you need to purchase one. But I'll tell you, I actually have one here. And what it is I bought years ago, there was a restaurant that was going out of business. And they had, these lit up signs that are behind the counter. And they would put these colored films in there showing like all their specials, their plates, prices and all that. Well, when the restaurant went out of business, they were selling these boxes, which were supposed to be display boxes, which are just a metal box with some lights in it and then a thick sheet of white plexiglass on the front. And I thought to myself, wow, that would make a really good light pad. So I ended up picking it up for I think it was $10 I paid for it. And I have it downstairs. Now, I don't use it as much as I used to, but there was a time when it came in quite handy. So even though it's something that I don't personally need in my business anymore, I could see a light pad being very handy for quite a few people. Now, the next item is almost a must for any graphic designer, and that's a Pantone color guide. Whether it's just the straight Pantone colors or if you're doing a CMYK guide or whatever the case may be, every designer should have a Pantone guide. Now, I know they're really expensive, And the crazy thing is Pantone tells you, it's written right on the guide itself, that you should be replacing them once per year. But at that price, that's ridiculous. I don't know anybody that actually does replace them once per year. I mean, the guide I'm using, I think, is 10 years old. But it still gets the job done. And sure, there are some colors that are missing because every year Pantone comes out with some new colors. And my guide doesn't have them. But, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not really less of a designer because I don't have access, or I don't have a color guide. It's not that I don't have access, but I don't have a color guide to show me what these new colors from the past few years are. I mean, if I really want to use them, they're all available in the software we use. I just don't have a physical guide showing them. But a Pantone color guide, definitely something every designer should have on hand. And if not, it should definitely be on their wish list. Now, I really like the next item that I'm going to talk about, and that's a lynda.com account. Somebody was talking about how they would really love a lynda.com account in order to learn more skills. And if you're not familiar with Lynda, it is a wonderful, wonderful resource for learning software and all sorts of design things. And these are not your typical YouTube videos that are just created by who knows who. These are professionally produced videos, and they're in bite-sized chunks. So if you're trying to learn something like Photoshop or InDesign or whatever, you're not just sitting there watching a 2, 3, 4 hour video. You're watching short 5, 10, maybe 15-minute videos that show you a whole bunch of different parts of the program, so that later, if you say, oh, I don't remember how to use this one particular tool, it makes it really easy for you to go back, find just that one video on using that tool and rewatching it again. I used lynda.com to learn CSS. I used it to learn PHP and MySQL, as well as a bunch of other design-related things. And if you're interested in trying Lynda, sorry, a little plug here, but if you're interested in trying out an account, if you go to resourcefuldesigner.com/Lynda, and that's Lynda with a Y, you can get a 10-day free trial to see if it's something you'd be interested in. And when you have that free trial, you have access to every one of their videos. So you can try as much as you want within that 10 days to see whether it's worth continuing. And who knows, if you're a fast learner, maybe you can use those 10 days, learn whatever you need, and then get out without paying a cent. But it's well worth trying. Once again, resourcefuldesigner.com/Lynda, and that's Lynda with a Y. Now, better lighting was also mentioned. Just in general, there's a lot of people that said that they were using their dining room or their kitchen table is where they do their work. And they say the lighting's not ideal. So they would be hoping for possibly better overhead lights or even better desk lights. And there are so many options for that don't cost a lot of money. If that's the problem you're facing, if lighting is your issue in your office, don't put that off. Invest some money. I mean, you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars. You can get some good, decent lighting for $20. Heck, go over to Walmart and buy yourself a desk lamp. Anything that would help you out. You don't want to strain your eyes and work in bad lighting conditions. A second monitor was mentioned by quite a few people, and that's one that I would really like. I've got a 27-inch iMac that I use, but I would really love to have a second monitor just so I can put all my palettes and sometimes have one program, maybe Illustrator on one window, Photoshop on the other, or so forth. But I'm always envious when I see somebody that has a 2 or maybe even a 3 monitor setup. The new Apple Pencil got a really good mention. Somebody said they had tried it out at an Apple store and they were amazed by how precise and just the feel and the use of it. And this is somebody that said they've used many different styluses before and they didn't think they'd be sold on this one. But once they actually tried it, now they've put their name on a waiting list to actually buy them because I guess they're sold out or I don't know if they're back ordered or what's the case. But there was a very big pitch for the Apple Pencil in the answers to my question. And an advanced keyboard. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the person meant by that. To me, what an advanced keyboard means is a keyboard that also has a number pad on it because I have Apple. And that's what I have is Apple's advanced keyboard. And as far as I know, the only difference between it and their regular keyboard is that mine has a number pad on it. And yes, it's not wireless. You can't get it wireless with the number pad. Mine is actually a wired keyboard, but I could not do without the number pad on my keyboard. And I know that you can get a little extension that's just the numbers to put next to your regular keyboard, but I like having it all in one piece. And every keyboard I've had has had a number pad on it. And I don't even have to look at it. If I need to type numbers, a bunch of numbers, just normally I would go to the top of the keyboard and type numbers. But if I need to put in a bunch of numbers, like doing calculations, my hand just automatically goes to that keypad on the right and I just type in whatever I need without even looking. So I love having that numbered keyboard there, and that's only available on the advanced keyboard. Now, I don't know if there's some other brands of keyboards out there that advanced means something different, but that's the meaning I put behind it. Now, there was a lot of other stuff mentioned, and I'm not going to go over all of them in detail. Somebody said that they would love to get an electronic cutting plotter. Some people mentioned new cameras, 3D printers. I got a kick out of somebody saying that they would love to have a door. That's their wish list, is to have a door so they can keep the kids out of their office. A couple of people said that they'd love to have an assistant. And then a few of them that took the whole improve your office space to heart and said that they would want plants or inspirational posters. Or one guy even said he'd love to get more action figures to put around the place. I love that answer. So I thought this was a very fun experiment I did, just asking people in general what you'd like if you could ask for anything for Christmas other than a computer and software. What would you want to improve your graphic studio, your office environment? Now, myself, what would I want? Well, as I mentioned earlier, another monitor would probably be near the top of my list. And now that I've heard so much talk about it, maybe a Wacom tablet, but I'm still not sold 100% that I actually need one. I do love the idea of action figures. If I look up at my desk right now, I could see that I've got a couple of Funko Pops, Star Wars, I've got a Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper. I also have Doc Brown from the Back to the Future series. I've got a Batman and a Joker. I've got a skull from the Terminator movies. I've also got a little TARDIS from Doctor Who. So all sorts of little knickknacks like that. I always love getting more of those, stuff that has meaning to me. Another thing is swords. I'm a sword collector. I love the medieval style swords. And as I look around my office, I have a bunch of them on display. Some of them from Lord of the Rings. Some of them are just generic medieval style swords. I used to have a rack on the wall behind my desk, or not behind my desk, behind my chair. I used to have a rack on the wall there with 8 swords, beautiful swords there. But we finished our basement, and surprising to me, my wife actually said one day, you know what would look really good on this wall is your rack of swords. And we tried it out, and she was right. The swords look great on the wall downstairs. I actually framed them. She let me buy a couple of more swords so I can frame. I have the rack with 8 swords, and now on each side of them, I have Excalibur on one side from King Arthur, and I have a Lord of the Rings sword on the other side of it. But because I moved those, that means that my rack in my office is no longer there. And so that's something I would love. I would love to get another rack and keep buying more swords for it. A new chair might be nice. I keep saying there's nothing wrong with my chair, but my wife and my kids hate sitting in it. They think it's the most uncomfortable chair around. But I don't know if it's just because I've been sitting in it every day for the past 10 years that I'm so used to it, it doesn't bother me. But they keep telling me I need a new chair. So maybe one of these days I'll invest. Now, as I said, I would love to get one of those Herman Miller chairs, but I don't think that's the way I'm going to go. I'll probably spend maybe $200-$300 at the most to buy a new chair. But even then, I keep putting it off because I don't notice anything wrong with the one I have. So that's kind of it for this week. I just thought I'd put out a fun little episode, maybe give you some ideas if you have people in your life that are looking for ideas for Christmas gifts for you. Or maybe you'll come into a little bit of extra money and you decide to buy a from me to me with love gift. That was a term my mom used to use, especially around the holidays. There'd always be 1 or 2 boxes under the Christmas tree with her name on them, and everybody would look around and go, who bought her that? We didn't know. And it always ended up that it was my mom that was buying herself gifts for Christmas. And the card always said, from me to me with love. So maybe this will spark an idea for you, and you can pass some of these ideas on to your loved ones or whoever, and maybe you'll get something from your wish list. Now, once again, I want to thank Felipe for his review that he left for me in iTunes, and encourage you to leave an honest review if you are enjoying the podcast. And by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, that'll redirect you directly to iTunes where you can leave a review. Now, next week's episode, I'll be talking about moving your design business. And because I've never moved my business myself, I have special guest Wes McDowell from the Deeply Graphic Design Cast on to talk about his move this past year from Los Angeles to Chicago. So you can look forward to that episode next week. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you can follow me on Twitter at ResourcefulD. You can like my Facebook page at facebook.com/resourcefuldesigner, or you can send me a message by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and using that form on that page. or you can always send me an email at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. So thank you once again for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I really do hope it does help you improve your graphic design business. So until next time, I'm Mark Dacote, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.